One of the most popular file formats for use on the web is JPEG. You use JPEG images for photographs and other images that have millions of colors. The JPEG format uses a complex compression algorithm that allows you to create smaller graphics by losing some of the quality of the image. This is called lossy compression because some of the image information is lost when the image is compressed. If you save an image as a JPEG and then continually open and resave that image as a JPEG, and let's say you do that 10 times, if you compare the image that you started with the 10th version of the image, even if you didn't change the settings, the 10th version of the image is going to have lower quality. And that's because every time JPEG is used, it's losing some of the data or information that's part of the original image. That's why it's important not to save your native files as JPEG images, since every time you save them, it loses some of the information. The JPEG format is not suited to images with text or large blocks of solid color. It also doesn't do well with simple shapes that have crisp edges. This is because when the image is compressed, the text, the color, or the lines may blur, resulting in an image that is not as sharp as it would be if it was saved in another format. JPEG images are best used for photographs and images that have lots and lots of natural color. Let's look at some of the settings that are available for us inside of Photoshop. Here I have my collection of pineapples. I'm going to use File, Export, Save for the Web, and it's going to open up the Save for the Web dialog box. I'm in the 4-up mode, and in this way I can compare different compression settings and see which one is going to work best. Because my image is bigger than the preview box, I have a hand here and I can slide my image around to get to different parts of the image. That's something that you'll want to do because sometimes some of the image might look okay with a setting, but if you move to an alternate part of the image, maybe it doesn't look quite as well. I'm going to click in the first pane here, and you can see that I'm using JPEG with high compression quality settings. We have the option to change the compression quality settings from low, medium, high, very high, and maximum. You can also use the quality slider right here. And if you click on the slider, you can reduce or increase the quality settings. The higher the quality, the better the quality, the less compression, and also the larger the file size. You can also numerically type in a value if that works better for you. The other options that we have available for JPEG are the checkboxes for Progressive, Optimize, and Embed Color Profile. I generally like to save my images as progressive images, and when I click this, you can see that the file size is slightly affected. This is what it looks like with Optimized. It's 141 kilobytes, and this is what it looks like with Progressive. It's 136 kilobytes. What Progressive does is it allows the image to come through in passes. So when the page is first loaded, the user will see some rendering of the image. It will usually be pretty blurry and of pretty poor quality. As the information is loaded on the page, the image will come through in passes and get subsequently better and better until the final version of the image is displayed. I think this is a great option because it gives the user something to see right away. The optimize setting is actually supposed to create images that are slightly smaller, and Photoshop says they're less compatible. I have not found this to necessarily be true, and as I said, I generally use Progressive, so this is my recommendation. You can also choose to embed a color profile. This is going to embed color information. It doesn't really affect the way the image looks, but it just is going to add a little bit more file size to your file. So again, I don't generally use this. I'm going to click on the third panel and I'm going to change the quality setting down to a lower quality setting. Let's actually use the pull down menu and just change it to low. You can see if we compare the images that the low quality image has a little bit more blurring. We call this artifacting in JPEGs. The rendering of the pineapples themselves are not as crisp and clear as they are, but you can see that the file size is much smaller, 61 kilobytes compared to 136. Depending on what you're going to ultimately be using the image for, you might be able to get away with a very low quality setting, especially if the image is just like a background or something that the user isn't focusing on. But if the image is to be used predominantly front and center in your website, you're probably going to want to save it with a little bit of a higher quality. When you reduce the quality, especially if the image is being used as a background, you may want to adjust the blur amount. The blur amount will reduce the file size further, and it does blur the image slightly, and in turn gets rid of some of that artifacting. As you can see, if we compare to this, which is saved as a 10 quality JPEG, and this one saved as a 5 quality JPEG with blurring, file size is much smaller. But if we compare and contrast these, this one is more blurry and less of the details are apparent. However, if you're just trying to show something that's going to be texture or display as a background image, you may be able to get away with this. My recommendation is to find the sweet spot. Experiment and see how low you can go with the quality settings so that for whatever your needs are, you're not sacrificing too much quality, but you are able to reduce the file size down considerably. Once you find a setting that you're happy with, make sure that that pane is selected. You can see that it's selected by the blue outline, and then you'll click Save. This is going to open the Save Optimized As window, and you can choose to save your image. The file name is coming from the file name of your Photoshop file. So my Photoshop file is called pineapple-images.psd. This is now going to be the new name for the file itself. If I want to change the name to something else, so I'll say Pineapple Bunch, I need to specify the name. It is important that when you're naming items for the web, you're not using spaces or funky characters. So if you want to generate a space, make sure you're using an underscore, a dash, or you're using camel casing as I'm using here. Once you specify this, you'll go ahead and click Save. I have the format to save images only. Photoshop does render HTML and images, but I just want the images. So I'm just going to specify images only, and the settings are coming from that Save for the Web dialog box. So I'll just use the default settings that are there. I'm going to hit Save, and then my file is saved. Let's look at a couple of different images that I have here. The next layer that I have is called Pineapple Transparent Background, and you can see that the pineapple is indeed on a transparent background. If I wanted to save this for the web, and I'm using the keyboard shortcut, on the Mac it's Command-Option-Shift-S, on the PC it would be Control-Alt-Shift-S. That's going to open my Save for the Web dialog box. Here you can see the original image with the checkerboard background indicating transparency. As you can see, the JPEG versions of the image do not show the checkerboard background, and that's because JPEGs don't support transparency. There is no way that you can create a JPEG with a transparent background. Photoshop will automatically change the background color to whatever the matte setting is. If you wanted the background color to be something other than white, all you have to do is click on this matte setting. It's going to open your color picker. You could pick a new background color and click OK, and now the background color is going to be that new color. But it will be a solid color. It's never going to be a transparent background. So if you wanted a transparent background, JPEG is not the option for you. The next image I have to show you is an image that is not on a transparent background. It's an image that's on a solid background. So again, I'm using my keyboard shortcut to open the Save for the Web dialog box. I'm going to reposition my image so that I can see an area that has a lot of color, and then I'll click in one of these panes and start to experiment by reducing the quality setting down. It is worth noting that sometimes the image that you're working with in Photoshop is going to be larger than you ultimately need it to be. You can reduce the image size in this Save for the Web dialog box as well. You have the option to either numerically type in a new width or height, and as long as these are linked like they are here, if I change the width, the height will also change accordingly. The preview that you get inside of the window is going to update as well. You can also change it percent based. So if I write 50%, the width and height are going to update accordingly. The quality setting is going to specify the resampling mode that you're using. Photoshop has quite a few different modes, and you can experiment with these to see which one is going to work best for you. I'll leave this at the default setting, which is bicubic for now. Once I'm happy with the settings that I've specified and the size, I can go ahead and click Save, It'll open that Save for the Web dialog box, and I'm going to resave over my original pineapple on the side, and I'll just call it pineappleside.jpg and click Save. Photoshop is asking me if I want to replace a file since I already have that one in existence. I'll click Replace, and now I'm good to go. The final layer I have is a layer of a logo. I'm just going to show you, since this is an image with limited colors, what it looks like if we save it as a JPEG. I'll go ahead and reposition so we can see the logo. If you look carefully and compare the JPEG version to the original version, you can see that we get some blurring, and some of the details are definitely not as clear and crisp as they are in the original logo. This is saved as a 30 quality JPEG image. If we increase the compression settings up to high, it does look quite a bit better, but it still is not quite as clear and crisp as the original, and then the file size starts to increase a lot as well. There's probably better solutions for us to save the logo. We'll look at those in another movie because this is an area that has text and limited colors, so probably JPEG is not the best option for us. Remember that JPEG images are best used for photographs and images that have lots and lots of natural color. You can pretty much think of it as the optimal format for anything that contains millions of colors or a large variation in gradiated tones.